Well, hello again, everyone. Here we are on the ground at Shanghai Pudong Airport. I don't know if this is exactly a note-perfect approximation of it, but as you can see, it certainly captures the size of the joint. This is one seriously large airport. And that is one seriously petite but mighty SAAB 340. We're, of course, in X-Plane 10.5, and we're, of course, in Windows 10, and because we're in Windows 10, I can't flip around and show you maps and things like that. Been a few days since we last convened. I was busy telling you about my cleaning mishap and my muscular mishap, and it ended up turning into something a bit more. I ended up bulging out a little bit of a lumbar disc, and even though my spine turned out, according to the MRI, to be in pretty damn good shape, actually, for an old codger such as myself, the freakishness of it pinched a nerve bundle coming out of it, and that affected my sciatic nerve going all the way down my left leg, and it basically rendered it inoperative for a while. Gave me tingles in my feet and gave me such unbelievably intense pain that the damn thing simply stopped working. So one fine Tuesday morning, I, having crawled to the bathroom from my bed, the very next thing I did was crawl to the phone, called 911, got my sorry ass loaded on an ambulance, and taken up to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital here in New York. And therein began the adventure. But before we get to that adventure, because it really was an adventure, and it was an eye-opening experience like I've never had before, and in some ways a wonderful experience, believe it or not. Let's see if we can knock the rust off and get this airplane started. So. The other thing that doesn't seem to be in the world's greatest shape is my microphone. So if we get a little bit of crackliness, my apologies. I've got a new one on order, a better one on order. But we're in Shanghai because we're actually going to pick up a leg of our round-the-world flight, which has been on a hiatus for a while. And we're going to make a totally inappropriate flight in this plane. It's reasonably appropriate, I suppose, in distance. We're going to go from Shanghai here to Fukuoka, pardon me, on, I believe it's Kyushu Island in Japan. It's on the southernmost main island of Japan. And we're going to begin our Japanese adventure there. We're going to cut on out of here off a runway 35 right, which happens to be right there. And we're going to shoot out on the, if I'm not mistaken, the an RNAV SID, and doesn't exactly have a name. It let's see, what is it technically? It is the one we're going to take is the Laman 12X, which is going to take us north and then bend us out to the east. And then it will get us onto a giant airway here that will take us across the sea and then onto the Maltz star going into Fukuoka, and then an ILS arrival probably to the south given the weather conditions. The weather conditions here are just a light wind, as you can see right there from the windsock. I've got real weather connector and SkyMax going, and I've also got Ventura Sky, which, as you see, smoothly and seamlessly adjusts the visibility as you fly, so that at fairly low altitudes, it's about 15, 16, 17 feet, 17 miles, forgive me. And as you get up higher, it grows, which is more or less what happens. But the advantage to it is it looks much more real. It blends much more seamlessly. It uses the NOAA plugin to get visibilities. And because the visibility is limited to a more appropriate level, the kind that you'd have on the ground, performance goes up. So it is quite a bonus. So let me just get ourselves started. We're already fueled up, and arm our emergency lights right now. Bim bam boom. Batteries can come on. And gens can come on. Can kill our master caution right there. And let's see, everything else will be fine where it is, at least for the moment. Check that our parking brake is set, and it is. Chocks and everything are off, doors are closed, props are windmilling ever so gently in the breeze here. And all the right warnings are warning us. And so let us, it doesn't really matter which side we start because we don't have a ground power unit, but alright, so this time we'll start number 2. We'll check that our throttles are in ground idle. They are. Our 2 condition levers are in start, and they are. So let's start up number 2, shall we? And it is starting, and we are getting RPM, and we're getting temperature rise. Oil pressure is in the green, temps are normal, fuel is flowing. And temps are not going nuts, and that's all cool. Ignition light is lit at the moment. And that's a good. Alright, in a second this will cut out. We'll start number 1. Get a good look. These props are slow to get going. And I've just forgotten for a minute if these are Garrett's or GE turbines. I think they're GE turbines. I think the only other thing they're used on is several model helicopters. So it's an unusual choice of an engine. You usually have a Pratt & Whitney PT6 or PT100 or PT150 or a Garrett or an Allied Signal in some cases. Alright, so we should have starter cutout, and we do. So start the left side, and once again we'll give it a gander, and we'll see that's doing nicely, and that's doing nicely, and that is cool. I'm jinxing myself, but I've yet to have a bad start in this airplane. Alright. There we go. Now, because this is nice and warm and toasty and stable, we're going to move the lever up to unfeather. And we're going to watch it come up. And then in 1 second, we're going to move it to min. And watch it come up. And it'll give a little bounce, but then it'll stabilize. It should. And it should hang out right at min. And next, we're going to get it right to max. And again, we're going to watch for it to come up, and that's good. We'll reset our right gens. Note that that light is out. We'll reset our right bleeds, make that light go out. Listen to those beautiful hydraulic pumps do their little bit. Turn on the standby pitot. We'll turn on our windshield heat for bird protection. Not sure if that's the standard thing for this plane, but no reason not to. And now that we've got a good start on number 1 as well, we'll move that there. I'm just going to put that lock on there so that that doesn't move. And we'll observe the RPM come up and then stabilize. And we'll now move it up to min, and we'll watch it do the same thing again. It'll come up and then stabilize. And then we'll turn it to max. And watch it stabilize. Just gonna use my little cheat here. There we go, max and max. Now we're talking. And our flaps will now work. Since we're looking at it, we can arm our CTOT for takeoff, which is a little built-in little torque gizmo. Got a nice long runway, so we can be reasonably derated. That is good. Cycle our left gens. That is good. Turn on our inverter. Turn on our panel lights. Check electricity coming off of Gen 1, and it is good. Check coming off of Gen 2, and it is good. External power should be 0. Batteries should be good, and they are, and that is done. Reset our bleeds, turn on our recircs, and now we should have a dark panel with the exception of the parking brakes. Let's just see if our trim works. It does. We've got a full load of fuel, but not a full load of passengers. Because who wants to take such a long flight on such a tiny little plane? We can do what we should have done before, is turn on the beacons. Might as well turn on the taxi and the wing lights. Check our emergency lights are armed. They are. Check our cabin temperature is okay, and it is. Alright, turn on our avionics at this point, and then we'll enter our flight plan, which I've already built. Okay, so we'll watch this all come up. We're going to be at standard pressure today, taking off. The winds are about 5 knots, pretty negligible. Turn on our gammon. Check to make sure some of our controls work. I've done some new key mappings here, so that's working this knob right here, that's working my course. Very nice. Hit OK. Get this where I want it to be, more or less. And then in a second we'll take a look at our SID and look at any altitude restrictions we've got. Pressure is fine. Let me just see. My climb mode switch works. See how that bug is moving around. Alright, good. Controls coming up. Let's see. V-speed, heading select. That button works. And that works, but we actually don't want that on. Alright. Different nav sources. The sounds in this airplane are just stupendously good. Okay, we've got a nice blank flight plan. We'll import the one we made, which is shangfuk.fms. And let's see what it yields us. These are the elements of our SID, but it does not obviously put in a SID as such, sadly. We really want our first segment to be this. So we'll go menu, activate leg. That should give us the magenta line we want. And it does. Go back to flight plan and put in our destination airport. These are all along the way of an airway, and unlike the GTN series, it doesn't consolidate airways and then let you break them out. Maltz is actually our initial approach fix, and before I do anything else, let me just naturally I've forgotten the ICAO designator. It's RJFF. So we'll just put that in. RJ. Why am I going in that direction? Alright, put that in there. And for the moment, let's put in an approach. Just for yucks. We'll do ILS 16. Oh, I figured out, I think, why in a previous flight it wouldn't fly the DME ARC. And I think it's because I didn't formally activate the approach. Transition should not be vectors, it should be Maltz. Oh, that's, you see I've got the GPS approach in. So let's clear that. And let's put in the ILS 16. So now it should ask us for only vectors, huh? Alright, well, we'll load it, and we'll actually be in a position by the time we hit Maltz to pretty much intercept anyway, so it's going to be somewhat immaterial. Okay, make sure we're in GPS mode. Get rid of that bearing needle. Let's see, what else shall we do? Already checked our electrics. This is good and clean. That is all fine. That is fine. Just out of superstition, I'm going to cycle the gens because sometimes things go wrong there. There we go. Adjust the lighting to taste. And actually, I want to be in heading mode. Now it toggles. There we go. And we will... we do not want to be in speed mode. We want to take off in a climb mode, and we'll take off at a climb mode of that. Let's just get our... get our SID back up, and our initial turn is going to be almost immediately from 347 to 014. So we'll just get 014 in there ready to go. We'll memorize that the runway heading is 347. Make a mental note of that. It is, after all, runway 35, right? So shouldn't be too much of a stretch. And at the moment, we are good to go. I take a quick look around. I'll turn my friction lock off, because otherwise these throttles will not operate. And now they do. That is good. Brakes are still on. Trims are all fairly neutral. Yaw dampers off. We can turn on at the moment. We can turn on our radar. We're not pointed at any human beings. Might as well. Oh, come on. Alright, and we can squawk. However, we're going to squawk here, and that's good enough. Squawk Charlie, get ready to go there. CTOT is set. Double check that prop sync is off. Auto Corson can now come on. Everything else is coming up roses. So let's get on out of Dodge here. Again, we're set in climb mode, and we'll get into nav mode pretty quickly. Before we go anywhere else, let's check our altitude constraints. We need to be above 59. We need to be at about 5,900 or above. 10 miles out. That seems a little bit optimistic, all things considered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a slightly higher CTOT, and we're going to thrape our engines a little bit, and I think we'll do a flaps 15 takeoff, give us a better climb rate, and set our initial altitude at let's see, the next altitude we need to be at on our SID is ATC assigned. So I think we're good. Wait, hold on. 4930 or above is our altitude. So we're actually fine. I think we'll be fine. So we'll just spin this up to 13,000. And I think we're going to cruise today at 210, flight level 210. That should do us. I am a little bit rusty in all of this, as you can tell. Let's just see. There are not a ton of nav aids here, but one of them is the Hengsha VOR, so we'll tune that in to nav 2 and keep that there as a reference. So that's what, 114.4, And the radial we're going to want to be on that will be the 065-ish. Should be close enough, so get that tuned up just as a backup, because if you go significantly north of here and you don't make that turn, you stray into military space, and I can't imagine they take very kindly to that. So we'll throw our second course up here, and we'll see if our LNAV path takes us more or less going in that direction. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is an RNAV departure, so there's always that. And other than that, we've got a clean center warning panel, and I think we're ready to shove off. So away we shall go. And you can see we're almost at sea level here. Do a little southwest taxi. I wonder what this airport really looks like in real life. It must be immense. This is a slightly revised installation of X-Plane on a slightly revised Windows Insider preview, which is really a deeply unwise thing to do, I guess. But it's either that or just go back to Windows 7. But I don't know. I just find it tough to do that. The skies look pretty nice. Pretty much matches the weather forecast, so hard to complain about that. And I do not believe this is the end of the runway, but because I'm a congenital moron, we'll just test our brakes here and find that they are good. And we'll also just stop here and see if we're in the right spot. Actually, we are in the right spot, so yeah, I was about to do something stupid and taxi over to that area over there. And you can see that our course is pointed the other way, which is as it should be, and our heading is pointed to about 20 degrees off of that, which is as it should be. So I cannot wait for the revised version of this plane. It is so good as it is that I can only imagine what the improvements are going to be. Also, I saw that Reality XP is bringing GTN 650s and 750s Garmin's to X-Plane. Unfortunately, at least their first effort is 32-bit, not 64. They have not done a whole lot of work in years, so I don't have a ton of faith in them as a company, but a boy can hope. I would so much rather have a 750 in this panel. Boy, would that be nice. And they do correctly use the Garmin trainer as the base for it, so it can really do everything the real thing can do. Alright, runway is identified. How do you like that? Get ourselves in position here. I'm using Jack's Sketchius's, or Sketchius's, I'm sorry, Jack, Flying Jackal's runway textures. These might be custom, I'm not sure, but it all looks good. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do the standard ram the throttles forward to about 60 something, and then CTOT will take over and we'll bring them up to the point we set. And then if I'm lucky, I will remember, instead of to throttle back using my power levers, I will remember to flip these two switches off and not be egregiously stupid about it all. So up come the power levers. We'll put them up to about index, and CTOT takes over and sets a torque, and we go flying. Again, almost immediately after we're airborne, we're going to make a turn to 014. There's 80. A little bit of a crosswind. There's 100. And there is V1 and rotate. And there's positive rate. Bring up the gear. And we'll now fly the flight director here. And pitch for 140. Which is what we've set as our first climb speed, our initial climb speed. This turn is obviously to take us out of the way of Shanghai proper. Just trim us a little bit. And I think I can go at this torque for, well, looking at the temperatures, they're fine. So I'm going to go at this torque for as long as it takes. Now that we've made the turn, switch into LNAV mode and follow the flight director there. And as you'll see, the HSI will come in 1 second. It also has this very, very nice little CDI thing that looks like a runway. It makes it all but idiot-proof to follow. We're already at 1,800 feet. I'm going to keep the flaps in for a little bit. And we're intercepting our course there. And in a second we'll make the turn, and we'll in essence follow the outbound radial of that VOR that I've set with the green needles, even though we're really going to be flying GPS. I think it's a joy to hand fly. Nice looking cloud shadows right now. Very nice looking clouds, actually. Alright, we are gonna hit our altitude constraint, so that's good. And up this way is verboten military territory, so we're going to stay away from that. Just refine our course a little. There we go. And I'm just keeping an eye on our temps. They're getting a little high, so what we'll do at this point is we'll flip our CTOT off. It will reduce us to a climb power. And we'll bring our props back to about 1,300. And we'll also increase our target speed to 160, bring in our flaps. So we're going to briefly level off here, build a little speed, and bring the torque back up. And continue to fly the flight director, and just let it nestle gently towards 160 and just retrim for that. We're safely away, so we can turn our auto coursing off. Done. And other than that, in a second I'll do a pressurization check. I'll get the autopilot on. But for the moment I'm just having too much fun flying the plane. And that's some nice looking cloudage. So now I'm flying this right now, and we're practically hands off. Now, as you can see, we're going to be making this turn here, and that is denoted by where this needle is. You can see how it's offset like this, just like the turn is offset like this. So as we approach there, let me just zoom in the range a little bit. You can see right there. Basically, this depiction here matches this depiction here, which is just a good way to keep yourself situationally aware. Now that we're in the clouds, keep our heads down, ever so slightly to the right of track, but not too bad. And our turn is 35 seconds away, so we should start to see the green needle begin to move. And again, the green needle is a radio navigational aid, and the blue one is reflecting our GPS course. And it even has turn smoothing. Look at that. It is rather good. We're going to make this turn. And we're actually, it's asking for pretty much a half standard rate turn, which is very considerate for an airliner. And there we go. And we've blown through our track just a little bit. And I'm just gonna explicitly put us in IAS mode here. I don't know why it popped into vertical speed mode, but it did. And when I rotate the little knob there, that's what happens. Okay, that's fine. 155 is a perfectly reasonable climb. And at this point, we will flip our autopilot and yaw damper on. Let it have its way. Do a pressurization check. Very inconvenient spot right there. But we'll also check our hydraulics, and they're all good. And we'll finally take a look outside here at some pretty nice looking clouds, although they still rotate far too fast. Better transitions with this. Make sure our flaps are up. And they are. Square up our heading bug, and now you notice we are on that radial. And we're 6.5 away from it. And our next turn is going to be at Surak. And that will slowly start to get us on this long overseas leg here. I'm just going to assume we've been cleared up into the big leagues. I believe the transition altitude here is 10, but we're at standard altimeter anyway. So, not sure what else we can do there. What we can do is, our temps are a little low, so we can climb a little faster here. And we can bring our props back to about 12.5. Give the passengers a little bit of a break. Spoon on a little bit more throttle. Watch these temps, keep them right about there. Everything else is cozy, so that's good. And now we're climbing at about 1,000 feet per minute, and that's great. Now we can just keep an eye out for traffic. So, anyway, I landed in the emergency room at Columbia Presbyterian, which, if you don't know, is, well, it's one of the largest emergency rooms in one of the largest hospitals in the country. And it is always... why is our heading bug always going to the right no matter what I do? Hang on, let me fix that real quickly. Something got screwed up. Just, I'll hold that story right there. Let's see. Joystick and equipment. Buttons, basic. Buttons, advanced. Autopilot heading up. And this should be autopilot heading down. Alright. And when I got there, I was in excruciating pain. And my blood pressure was like 149 over 95 or something insane like that. Pulse was racing. And they wheel you into an emergency room. You get triaged, and then you find yourself in this madhouse with easily another 150 patients, all on gurneys, some of them in bays, some of them in hallways, some of them... I ended up actually stuck between two nursing stations, literally in a little, just in a little alleyway, I suppose. But I got looked at, got checked over. I got some pain medication. They ascertained that I wasn't falling apart completely. And ultimately got wheeled into a kind of bay, you know, with curtains around it. Every possible thing that can happen happened. Every noise, every sensation, every bit of just human experience that occurs did occur. And you know, there are all of these heart rate monitors going off all the time. There are people, you know, moaning and in pain, and there are emotionally disturbed people and drunks and people who've been in bar fights, and elderly people who end up there because, well, they just end up there, some of them. People on the streets who, you know, have one kind of ailment or another, but usually they just have many, many, many ailments. And so you're lying flat on your back, and a part of you just wants it all to go away. You want the guy next to you to shut up. You want the lady 3 beds down who refuses to get an IV put in, but they can't do anything until they put in an IV, and a standoff ensues for at least an hour of sort of negotiating back and forth to get, you know, what needs to be done. And there is a part of you that is just obviously selfish as hell. You're in pain, and you want them to take care of you and only you, and do it now, and everybody else to shut the hell up, and all the rest of it. And then, if you're lucky, something like what happened to me will happen to you. And you'll be in this situation, and you'll see these people, professionals who had been, some of them milling around talking about their spouses and their day-to-day lives and all the rest of that. And of course you wish they would stop doing that and of course take care of you, and only you and nobody but you. All of a sudden you'll feel a buzz and you'll hear something about a patient coming in. In my case it was a terrible motorcycle wreck, and all of a sudden you'll see all of these people who you really thought were like, you wondered why don't they care? Why don't they care about me? Why aren't they rushing over to find out every little thing that I need? You see these people all of a sudden. I was fortunate enough to be, I don't know, 10, 15 feet away from the whole thing. All of a sudden you see them change completely. Their aspect, their facial expressions change. And then they move into certain positions, and several of them move by this cart, and others start going through drawers and pulling out bags of plasma and checking blood types and labels, and others are getting certain instruments out, and they're all sort of getting their game faces on, and they're not quite talking to each other, except they're nodding at each other every once in a while, because they all know how to do this and they've all done it before. So there isn't a whole lot of coaxing and coaching and walking and talking through it. All of a sudden this is just happening around you, and they know because they're hearing from the paramedics who are on their way in that they've only got 7 minutes, that they've got 5 minutes, they've got 3 minutes. And all of a sudden, through the triage area, comes a stretcher moving as fast as you humanly could. And on it, in this case, was a guy who must have been in his mid-30s. And you got the clear idea that that he was not expected, that he was not expected to do well, and you could tell by looking at him. They were moving him very quickly, but his entire midsection was distended, was much larger than it would have been. And that's because every bit of vital fluid in him was basically leaking out of him into his abdominal cavity. But in an instant, he was wheeled into a bay, and they didn't even pull the curtains around him. They just moved him out of the sort of general way of everybody else. But I had a sight line to the whole thing. And all of a sudden, I'm not kidding you, there were at least a dozen people around the gurney he was on. And they were all doing different things. There was one who set up a central line, which is a major IV line, into a big blood vessel so that they can get stuff into a body as quickly as possible. And they were hanging bags of plasma, and they were pushing it into him. And then whole blood, and they were pushing it into him. There was somebody else who was doing chest compressions on him. There was somebody else who was opening his chest because the suspicion was that he had torn, in the trauma of the accident, a major blood vessel. And they were moving as fast as I've ever seen people move, and they all were doing something different. They were all within about 1.5 feet of one another. Some of them were swinging sharp implements and big, brutal, primeval tools, you know, to spread this guy's ribs and crack his chest, and there was a thoracic surgeon there, and they had really no time to do anything except to try to stabilize this guy and hope that they could reattach whatever they needed to reattach, or at least assess what was wrong. Apparently, he had torn his aorta, which is as bad as you can get, and they at some point realized that there was really nothing they could do, and as they kept working, the man expired, and they slowly disassembled, slowly walked away, did all the procedures that surround that sort of thing, and then a couple hours later saved a suicide, a drug overdose, and triaged and stabilized 2 stabbing victims, and none of them ever missed a beat. I was in the emergency room because they didn't have a room to admit me. They didn't have a bed. There's a shortage of beds. And I spent the night. I spent 25 hours in the emergency room before I was transferred to a room. And what began as a pain in the ass in a way became a privilege because of what I witnessed. I witnessed people doing the absolute best they could even under a nearly hopeless situation, and doing it without the least bit of drama, with almost no wasted motion, and then afterwards not getting rattled by it and continuing on with what they had to do. I'm sure, I have absolutely no doubt, that experience stayed with them for hours or days afterwards, and I'm sure they had a drink and thought about it and all the rest of that. But it didn't stop them from going on and doing what they needed to do. Now, I work in a television news control room, and we have people who, and I'm one of them, who work in a kind of ballet like that, a sort of human dance of action and thinking and decision making, and often split-second decision making. But we flatter ourselves sometimes. Sometimes we joke and we say we're not curing cancer. The reality is that nobody dies when we do our job wrong. And in the case of these professionals I saw, nobody dies even if we do our job right. And it was a profoundly humbling experience to see that. And what was even more amazing was it wasn't the only one. I spent 4 days being medicated and monitored and treated to bring down the inflammation in the nerve that was causing such havoc in my left leg. And I shared a room with a gentleman. I didn't meet him initially. He was asleep when I finally got a room on Wednesday night. But I learned the next morning that he was an 86-year-old guy who was recovering from a horrible, horrible bout of pneumonia that had weakened him terribly. But my first encounter with him was listening to him on the phone, speaking to his wife the next morning. And, "Hello, sunshine," he said. And he signed off with, "I love you, sunshine." And he was English from Yorkshire. No last names. His name was Bob. His name is Bob. And you could hear the tenderness in his voice, and you could hear how little he was talking about himself and his situation. He was talking like a man as much in love as anybody I'd ever heard. He signed off with "Goodbye, sunshine," and she later came to visit him. And more on that in a little bit. But Bob, I found out. I introduced myself. He was virtually immobile in his bed because he was just so terribly weakened from fighting the disease. And he was waiting to be transferred to a rehab facility where I have no doubt he'll do just fine. But we introduced ourselves, and he grew up in Hull, which is a port city, and he was 9 years old when World War II broke out. So he was a child and living there, and they had one of these rudimentary shelters in the backyard that was basically a hole in the ground. But to him as a 9-year-old, he was 9 years old when the war began, and he was 15 when it ended. He told me somewhat sheepishly that some of it was the greatest adventure you could possibly have as a child that age. What with unexploded bombs and ruins to play in and all the rest. But at the same time, I started asking him about what it was like to be so intimate with constant death. And he matter-of-factly told me that almost every day in school there would be an announcement that so-and-so is no longer with us, and then there would be a moment of silence, and then so-and-so is no longer with us, and another moment of silence, and so-and-so isn't with us, and another moment of silence. This was almost on a daily basis, and this wasn't parents who were dying in war. This was just simply classmates. But he went on to learn mathematics and become a mathematician, and it turns out that he was a colleague of Alan Turing, the man who essentially invented computing as we know it. He invented the idea of a computer that does everything that this computer right here does, basically, but he invented the concept of it. In essence, everything that this computer is doing right now, and the program that is creating this does right now, can be reduced to mathematics on a page, and very simple mathematics on a page. Alan Turing was one of the greats in mathematics and computing and information theory. He was also gay at a time when it wasn't very convenient to be gay, and suffered terribly for it. But Bob knew and crossed paths with Alan Turing. Then he came to this country and went to work doing math for Boeing, their Vertol division, developing helicopters and working on the computer end of it, the mathematical end of it, the aeronautical engineering end of it. And so here I am, an aviation geek, and I'm sitting next to somebody who, a computer aviation geek, and I'm sitting next to somebody who has worked with one of the founding fathers of computing, and also spent a good portion of his career in the aviation business. So we could talk about science, and we talked about aviation, and we talked about designing planes, and he knew all about flight simulators, and he asked me if I flew one, and I said yes, and he asked me which one, and I said, well, I fly all of them, and we talked about the differences between them, and we talked about lookup tables versus the way X-Plane does it. And bear in mind, the man is 86 years old, and he probably knows more about it than most people who are half his age and are still in the business. Just increasing our climb rate a little bit here, so we actually get there at some point. So we had that to talk about, and in between all of that, he never complained once about anything. Not about the food, not about the people who were taking care of us, who, by the way, were unbelievably good. But we managed to keep each other entertained, me, a young whippersnapper, and this guy, 86, who, by the way, is taking part in a study of Alzheimer's. He is donating his brain to the Loeb study, which is studies the brains of the recently deceased senior citizens to determine the characteristics of dementia, Alzheimer's, what makes a brain normal at that age, abnormal, etc., etc., etc. And he was terribly, terribly concerned that if worse should come to worst, and he shouldn't make it out of there, that that was known, and he wouldn't, well, his cranium wouldn't slip between the cracks. And so he discussed that with his wife when she came to visit the first time. And he made several calls to his children. And they weren't calls about himself. One of them was going through a career change, and another one was at an uncertain moment. And all he spent the time doing was talking about them, was offering them encouragement, was listening. You know, sometimes when you hear a phone conversation, it doesn't feel like a conversation because you hear so much of the end going out. At some point, I wouldn't mind streaming, because it would be very, very nice listening to you folks and having a bit more of a conversation. But what was so notable about it was there were these long pauses, and he was obviously listening really deeply to what his children were saying, and he wasn't offering them a canned lecture, and you could tell he thought an awful lot about it. and that was lovely. Um, what was lovelier was the next day his wife came back, and this is his third wife, and she's not unbelievably younger than him, but if I had to guess, I'd say she's 20 years younger than him, and maybe 25. And where he has this baritone English voice, very rich English voice, she's a classic New Yorker, and they met very, very cute in a park, actually not far from the hospital, and got married, so many years ago, and they each brought a lot of life experience to it. But the other day she came to visit, and there's a curtain between us. I'm not gaping or gawking, but 1,000 feet away, she put on some music, some very quiet music, and she just got into the bed with him, and they just lay together for a while, listening to the music, not saying much of anything, never talking about his situation in any lamentable way. He was always talking about making sure all arrangements were made, and she was always just talking about just the practicalities of how the care was going and all the rest of that. These were two people who could have at that moment and might still be facing some just truly life-altering happenings. I mean, when somebody is an 86-year-old man who's had a terrible illness, life is a lot more delicate than it would be if a 30-year-old husband had broken his ankle in a softball game. But so there they lay together in this tiny little hospital bed, just doing something that not every couple, I think, can do, but good ones can, and that is sharing stillness together. And there's just gentle music playing, and they were just being comfortable in the silence and with each other. And then he gets up and gets himself upright, and she had said that she's really tired that day, and he said, I know it will help. And bear in mind, he's barely strong enough to get himself even out of bed and into a chair, and he leans over and starts rubbing her feet, gives her a foot massage, and it was one of the sweetest moments I'd ever run across, and it doesn't even end there, because the next night really moved me very deeply. And you realize, just as we creep up here to cruising altitude, just check our pressure, make sure we're still breathing here, and we are, and our temps look good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring our props now back to a more appropriate cruise level, right about to there, and turn on prop sync. Get on that switch right. No, not that one. This, well, let's try it this way. Approach it from the other angle. There we go. All right. You know, you experience such vulnerability in a hospital, and if you're unlucky, you only experience your own vulnerability, and that's the only thing you sense. If you're lucky, if you're blessed, you get to be able to bear witness to someone else's and try to do something to make it better. Late Friday night, Bob needed to use the bathroom, and the way he would usually do it, the way I would do it, is I had a walker. Well, the first time I had a wheelchair, and I'd wheel myself over to the bathroom, and then, you know, limp out and use the toilet or brush my teeth or whatever. Couldn't take a shower, but that was reasonably functional. Bob would usually have to be assisted to the bathroom, or at night he would use the, you know, they provide a little jug for you. But he was too weak to do almost any of that, and a female orderly came, and she brought over one of those sort of commode deals. It's like a toilet, only it's on wheels, you know, a little, just something to catch the waste. And you know, Bob hoisted himself out of bed, and you could tell already it was going to be a messy proposition. And you know, if you think about that, it's hard to imagine anything for a grown person more embarrassing than that. And thinking about it, if I'd given myself a moment to think about something like that beforehand, about what I would do in that situation, I would have said, I would have cringed, I would have closed my eyes or covered my ears and just hope it all ended. And I listened to this guy who had not uttered a single complaint about anything. And you could tell that this was unbelievably rough on him. And humiliating, and just, you know, thoroughly awful. And I wanted to try to do something, and you know, he was in the RAF, so the first thing I said was, I said, "You remember basic training and the latrines then, don't you?" And he said, "Oh I And I said, "Do you recall how little privacy you had then?" And he said, "Oh yes." And I said, given where the RAF trained and where you trained in the far north of England in the wintertime, this can't be worse than that. And he laughed a little bit. And so I started telling him a story about my experience in summer camp. And I will tell you right off the bat that, well, no, I won't tell you right off the bat. I said, you know, I said, "Bob, the most terrifying thing that ever happened to me was the first night at summer camp when I had to go to the bathroom, when I walked from our cabin to the bathroom, and I realized there were rows and rows and rows of toilets. There wasn't a single stall. They were all out in the open. And, but I had to go, and I did. And I ultimately got over it. But, and again, there are going to be no last names here. I'll make up a last name. No, I won't make up a last name. Andy. I started telling him the story about Andy, who was so mortified by all of this that he tried to hold it in because he didn't want to go around anybody. And he held it in, and he held it in, and he managed to hold it in for a week. He managed to go for a week without moving his bowels. And ultimately, and I told Bob this, Bob started to snicker a little bit, and he said, "There's always one." And so I started telling him more about Andy and how he would, you know, go and didn't mind peeing, but he wasn't about to poop in front of anybody, and how ultimately he ended up in the hospital where he had to get enema after enema after enema to remove, well, what he hath wrought. And by the time I got done with it, I said, and from there on out, he became known to his fellow campers as Up Yours Andy. And at this point, Bob and I are giggling like school children, and tears are streaming down our faces. The camp was true. Andy exists. But I made up the entire story because I was grasping for something, anything, that could take his mind off of it. And I tell stories for a living. I write stories for a living. Now, they happen to be, most of them at least, based in fact. But I embellished it, and I embroidered it, and I embellished on top of the embroiderment, and I did everything possible to try and get at least a laugh every 30 seconds out of it. And I built it into this giant shaggy dog story, of course, of poor Andy and what it did to Andy for the rest of his life, and how I crossed paths with Andy. He ended up going to the same college I did, and it became our private secret, and everybody wondered why I kept calling him Up Yours Andy and all the rest of it. And utterly and completely made up out of whole cloth, but I needed to get that laugh out of him. And it turned into this giant cathartic moment for both of us, because we realized just how absurd it was. That it was less embarrassing than it was absurd. That it is just what human beings do. That we are grotesque sacks of living, breathing, thinking, talking, arguing, loving, hating shit. At the end of the day. But it was such a blessing because it let me use a talent that I've mainly used so that people pay attention long enough to watch the commercials and buy a car or buy some soap. And I actually used it at that point to help both of us in a profoundly terrible human moment or what could have been a profoundly terrible human moment, to find more of the human and less of the terrible. So I'm going to call this video Up Yours, Andy, just in honor of Andy, who, by the way, when we were in college, found other ways to mock mercilessly. My friend and I worked on the school paper, and Andy was rather full of himself, and he contributed op-eds, and we routinely would publish his op-eds but misspell his name by just a little bit. And we'd always make like it was a tiny little, you know, just an oversight. It was terrible. So, you know, I actually have Andy to thank for being at that age, and I'm sure he's grown out of it, a somewhat of an object of ridicule, because if I couldn't have had that on my mind, I couldn't have told that absurd Shaggy dog story with anybody, because I wouldn't have had anybody to star in it. So at this moment, I just want to say, not just up yours, Andy, but thank you, Andy. You were there for me when I needed you, and perhaps one day I will tell him that he helped a fellow human being in his moment of great need. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it, and on the whole, what could have been a nightmarish 5 days really turned into 5 days I won't soon forget, and in a very, very good way. I hope if you ever find yourself in a situation where the temptation is to wallow and to piss and moan, and you know me, I piss and moan about everything. I piss and moan that I can't manipulate the speed bug right, and I piss and moan that the clouds aren't as good as they might be, and they aren't. But my God, that gave me so much perspective, and I hope you get something out of it. I hope it serves. I hope it plants a seed, just in case you find yourself needing something like that. I think actually, the best I can tell you isn't to do what I did or think about it the way I think about it, but I think maybe the takeaway is that probably we've all got it in ourselves to find that kind of good in a horrible situation, and people get it from all kinds of directions. Some from religion, some from philosophy, but I suspect it just springs from the fact that that at good moments, that's what we do. So I think everybody has it in them, and I'm blown away that I had it in me, because I had every reason to be foul and miserable and all the rest of it. So Bob, thank you, and up yours, Andy, thank you so very much. Let's see where we are actually, other than at the end of a story. We are from our destination a good ways away, but not too far. Let's see. this is more or less the beginning of our star, and malts is our initial approach, fix. So let me tell you something about the quotidian stuff here. I am so swacked on so many different kinds of drugs that I'm surprised I can string a coherent story together. I'm on every manner of anti-inflammatory to bring the swelling of that nerve bundle down. I'm on something called gabapentin, which is a really interesting drug in that it's a signal dampener, because your nerves have electricity running. They run on electricity, and what it does is it selectively blocks some of the calcium channel that is used to chemically create an electrical gradient or electrical difference, a potential, a voltage, basically, that makes your nerves work. And it is basically the same as the sort of anti-spiking, smoothing, or dampening sort of thing that you can apply to controls in flight simulators and things like that. But what it does, in essence, is it selectively blocks some of those calcium channels. Picture it this way. You've got a nerve, and on one end you've got a cathode, on the other end you've got an anode. And I'm oversimplifying vastly, because in fact you've got gaps the whole way through. Instead of like a long wire, you've got cells that have chemical differences, that have calcium ions or sodium ions, that have electrolytes in them. And what this drug does is it selectively blocks a little bit of it. Picture you've got two electrodes, and one an anode and the other a cathode. You connect them together with a wire, or with contacts on either end. You clip them together. Only what you do on one end is you selectively put a little bit of insulation on it, and so what it does is it limits the potential that can travel along it. And what basically this does is it limits some of the big spikes and noise in the nerve. And since basically what's going on is I've got shit traveling down my sciatic nerve, which literally gives me a pain in the ass. It goes right down your glutes and right down the back of your leg, through your hamstrings, all the way down to your toes. What this drug does is it dampens that out. It modulates it, which is pretty damn cool. Some of the other stuff is just plain old narcotics that just whacks you out a little bit, lessens the pain a bit. Wow, I'm getting a good, look at this. We're getting a good deck below us, and we're getting a good overcast above us, which is probably why our frames are going down a little bit. But never mind, I'm pretty damn impressed. Some of this is Ventura Sky, I think's doing, and some of it is that SkyMax is getting a little bit better at its job. But you notice the transitions are happening very smoothly. So anyway, I'm stoned out of my gourd here doing this. I'm through the roof at this point. So we get a look here at that's damn good. I'll say that. Let me just get our weather in Fukuoka. From here on out, I'm just going to call it our destination, because I'm hopeless at this. So let's see. Get our other. Here's our star, our malt star, and that. In addition to that, I'll call up our ILS here. I'm doing this on my iPad on Navigraph charts. Let's do a quick check. Hydraulic quantities are good. Battery temp is fine. No caution lights. Alright, all is well. And it's actually pretty good that we're at 210, because if we were at a jet altitude, we would probably be in the middle of that overcast. So anyway, Genko is the beginning of our star, so that's 80 miles away. And it's going to take us to the north of the field. It's going to descend us eventually to 2,000 or above, which is where we'll turn and we'll grab the localizer. So let me just get that chart up here too. And again, apologies, I can't get it up here for you. Just see what we're looking like here. We're a track up at the moment. But, okay, so there's Ginkgo. It's just, you know what, that's probably not going to do well for us. Yes, there's Ginkgo, and then we're going to bend off to the north, and there's Maltz, and we're going to come back down. So let me just get our chart up here. Japan. Never used this on an iPad before, but here we go. RJFF. Procedures. ILS or localizer 16. And it begins. First, let me put it on a little clipboard here. Add to existing clip. Okay, there we go. Alright, so Maltz is 11 miles out. That's our, it's actually our intermediate fix. So that is all well and good. And our missed approach is a climb to 5,000 or above, so there's some terrain to deal with. And then a turn to the right, and then a hold at a fix at the Ike or the Iki VOR, and we can actually tune in the Fukuoka, pardon me, VOR just as a sanity check as well. ATIS is 127.2. Get that ready to go. You know what, I should just use this, but I hate it with a passion. No, you know what? Let me use the nice old-fashioned one. There we go, 120. I don't really want to do that. I want to just do that. Okay. Actually, it gives us, look at this, it gives us all of them up here, which is great. So 127, see how much easier this is? Ah, you can scroll it too, very nice. Okay, 127. I guess 2-1 will do it. Boom. Alright, and get in nav 2. Fukuoka. How do I close this? What do I do? Hit this? Yes. Okay, good. And that is going to be, what did we say? 114.5. So we'll have a way of knowing we're getting there. 114.5. Toss that into the active. And we'll make nav2 on our RMI. That's fine. Not going to display it yet. I might not even display it at all. And let's just check our weather there. It is... Ooh, you know what? We should probably do the approach to 3-2 right now because the winds have shifted. It's now 10 knots at 320, so we'll do that. So we've got a new approach. And Pressure is almost sea level, and few clouds. Shouldn't be too bad. We could even do a circling approach, but let's do the ILS into the opposite direction. So back to Navigraph. We'll get let's see, the ILS 340. Cool. All right, let's see where our IF is. We want to be, instead of at Maltz, we want to be at Hawks, which is on the opposite end, 17 miles south, 4,000 feet. And actually, it'd be a more interesting approach. Instead of coming over the harbor, we'll come through some mountainous terrain, so that should be fun. All right, so let's see. That's a standard glide slope, standard minimums, and just program that in and see what it offers us. Procedure. Got that loaded, but we don't really want that, so we'll select a new one. And ILS 340. Enter. Transition vectors. Okay, load. Yes. Activate no. And so we'll just have to use the old mappy map here. Sky vector, and instead of going to Maltz, let's go to, oh, I can't pronounce it. Oh, I can pronounce it. Ogi. So we'll do Ogi to Chinu. And we'll interrupt our, we'll go, you know what, we're going to eliminate our star entirely, so we'll go Isaki to Ogi direct. So let's get in our editing mode here. Isaki is next, and so we'll go to put our cursor down here. Okay, so we're going to skip Ginkgo. Isaki is next, and then Ogi, O-H-G-I-E. H-G... Yeah, there we go. Ogi. We're going to delete Ginkgo. And we're going to delete Yabko. And we're going to delete Saito. And we're going to delete Maltz. And we will add Ogi and then Chinu. And then we'll start to calculate our descent here. Well, that was a reasonably smooth transition into overcast, so Yeah, Ventura and NOAA weather seem to be doing the trick. Oh, there we go. Chino. Is it Chino or Chinu? No, it's Chinu. That's bad. There we go. Okay, done and done. So now... still a ways away. Still got plenty of fuel. Let's see, our true airspeed is 225 and our ground speed 238. That's good. Set course to 082. It automatically slaves, so I'm not doing it, and it looks like our little course selector shortcut is vertutzt. So should have gone the other direction. But I'm a stubborn bastard. And we'll get the other approach plate up and ready to go. 082. Not that it matters because this is automatically slaved, but at least it keeps our standby slaved in the right direction too. So, done. Alright, so let me just see if this gives us some reasonable intercept. Let's see, we go from 057 to 014. It's an interesting set of turns, but there's plenty of mileage in between them. Alright, we are in the soup, ladies and gentlemen, and we are at minus 20 degrees. I don't know whether this calls for anti-ice, but it probably couldn't hurt. Let's see what this looks like. Wow. That's some serious crap. That is serious crap. Me like. That's fun. Alright, let's see. At Hawks, we should be, let me check our approach plate here. At Hawks, we should be at 4,000 or above, so let's plan our descent here. We can do it this way. Only not like that. More like the awkward way. We'll make it a even 400 just to stay comfortably below the glide slope, but comfortably at our minimums. Hawks. Should be before, it should be at, right? I guess it doesn't. Since we don't have a mileage, that's fine. It doesn't let you do it onto an approach. So what I'm going to have to do is instead look at Chinu. How far is Chinu from Hawks? Is what? 17 miles. This confuses me, I have to say. I'll just look at it on the map instead, on the chart. Chinu is about... I'm looking at a compass rose for a VOR rose for guidance because it's 10 miles. So Chinu is about 6 miles away, and it looks like the minimum altitude is 6,000. So let's do 6,000 at Chinu. Just go back. Set us up for that. It's the MSA. There we go. And we'll want to be descending at about 1,100 feet per minute. All right. 1,000 feet per minute. That'll work. Alright, so we're a ways away from our TOD. We're in the soup here. I have to take a whole crapload more medicine, including enough steroids to make Arnold Schwarzenegger jealous. We'll stop the video right here and pick it up a little closer to TOD, and with any luck it will be a bit more scenic. So see you in a bit. Oh, now I ask you, how can anybody dislike a turboprop with all the sounds they make? Oh, look at that. That's lovely. Anyway, here we are. We're about a little more than 10 minutes away from the top of descent. Start to see bits and pieces of the Japanese mainland. Got ATIS tuned up. We're coming in from the south. I edited our flight plan a little bit to vector us in from the south, more or less. Puts us over a little bit rockier terrain in the 5,000 foot level, which is okay by me, Panky. You know what, we're going to save us a little bit more time because we're going to get permission instead of going to Ogi first. We are going to go direct to Mizma, so that'll take some time off. Now I suppose we could just delete it and it would resequence, but let's try doing it maybe the better way. So we're going to move the cursor down to there, and we're going to ask for permission and receive permission, naturally, because we are sky gods to go there directly. So wait a decent interval and say Kyushu Center, American 125. Can we get direct Mizma instead of shooting out to Ogi? It sure would save us some time. We'd be most grateful. And the answer would come back American 125, proceed direct Mizma. And we'd say direct Mizma 125, Thank you very much. We'll just activate this leg. And that shaves a little time off of there. So at Misma, we have to be at 5,000 feet, so we have to lose 16,000 feet and 16,000 feet, or 16 times 3 is 24. You see, I go and do it backwards. And I'm also stoned to my gills. Did I tell you about the Valium also? Alright, so we have to go down 16,000 feet, usually 300 feet per mile. So 16 times 3 is 48 miles it should take. And we seem to be off course, and that's probably because I tinkered with it in mid-action here. So I do direct to Misma. And now we're back on course. Probably my mistake. Alright, so we're 90 away, and it has recalculated. And if we want to go down at a gentle 600 feet per minute, we could start right now. But anyway, I'm going to spin this down to 5. We haven't given it a mode to descend in, so it's not just going to descend because we changed to the altitude set, as it were. Alright, there we go there. Be ready to go when the TOD happens. You missed some really good... I had to employ the anti-ice, and there was some ice on some of the surfaces. Looked really good. What I don't like about this plane generically is it tends to cruise very much nose up. And that's just a quirk of the beast. It's the way it's designed, where the center of pressure and center of lift for the wings are. What kind of cargo it expects to be carrying can result in big changes in deck angle. But this one seems fine. Alright, so now the big challenge is going to be to get on the ground before I get into bed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shallow out our descent profile a little bit. Nice continuous descent. So let's make this 700 feet per minute. Not 600, but we'll make it 800 feet per minute. So we're 4 minutes and 46 seconds away at the tone beep from our top of descent. We are in a fuel emergency, only in this case the fuel is me. go home. Wow, look at that down there. This is the HD Mesh version 3 for Japan, so it should look pretty good. I didn't install the heavy autogen stuff for Japan or any other place because I think it looks kind of cartoonish. There are designers who excel at that, and then there are designers like Steve Jobs that revel in the lack of any of that. Hard to say which is right, because sometimes you're in the mood for something else, but let's see where we are in our top of descent dance. There we go. So let's go down. And we'll make it 700 feet per minute. No, we don't want it to be up. We want it, got it backwards, of course. Alright, so at this point we really want it to be 800 feet per minute, and unfortunately this little knob doesn't take too kindly to interventions. All right. And down we go. Since we do want to maintain our speed, we could certainly do this in IAS mode, and I think we will, and use it to get an equivalent descent rate. Alright, so we're going to kind of beat our target just a little bit, but that's reasonably okay. Passengers shouldn't even feel it, but I'm going to tell them to sit down. Already did. I didn't turn on the no trying to sell your neighbor's cabinet fixtures or insurance, but we got a good crew on these kinds of flights. Good bunch of people. All right. You know, I set us into vertical speed mode, and I tried to set the speed using one of the keys I bound up to this, but it didn't seem to take. I have to use this monstrosity this way. That's a bit much. Oh no. There we go. Okay. Alright. Going down to 1,000 feet per minute, which is just about half of our, well, it's a little more than, a little less than half of our ground speed. We're getting quite a shove. Alright, I think we're going okay. Here we are. Let's see which VOR that is. I had to guess. I can't guess. Wow. Alright, well. Relatively happy camper anyway. Heavens to Betsy, am I getting sleepy? Alright, there's our turn. Wish I knew how to move this off the screen a little bit. Let's see how badly activating the approach is, shall we? Could be a violation, like ripping the tags off of mattresses, but we'll see. Let's see, our waypoints again were alright, so we're 64 miles away from 6,000 feet. So we're 10,300 feet away in altitude. And if you lop off the amount you have to use, you can approximate the effort it's going to take. So we need to be down about 10,000 feet in 40 miles. So 5,500 feet. Wow, she's a cool customer. Okay. I have to get used to the fact that when you change views in X-Plane, this window doesn't go away. Instead, it just follows you. So if I hit this right here, it follows me. And manufacturers, many of them seem loath to do anything customer-centric. Instead, will use it as an excuse to explain why they can't do anything. But that's what happens. So Harry is frequency, please. Where is the frequency? What is the frequency, Kenneth? 108.9. 108.935.337. 108.9, yes. And the course is 337, so all is right in the world. We are now 32 miles away from our next target, and that would be 32 miles. I wish he had a dog. All right. Got our altimeter window set for 1500. The local altimeter is, well, it's a little bit higher than metric normal is, which is what, 1013, something like that. Alright, let's get the weather. The weather there is worsening. We like that. Winds have shifted to 310 at 8. Yeah, it looks like quite a nice little storm. Matter of fact, let's see where we are right now. Okay, good. This is not UHD, but just HD mesh, which has better street map and other kinds of data in it as well. So there is good reason to be an early adopter, even though the ones who are late adopters usually get a pair of shorts and they don't have to worry about their cell phone dropping out of their pockets. Wow, the mist effect here is very nice. All right. And let's see how we are on our descent. If I end up back in Columbia, I don't know what story I'm going to be on or anything like that. I don't know where they put me, what building they put me, but I doubt it. Let's see. RJDM. We'll make that as a fix. Don't know if he's still living, don't know if he's still in the Chicago area. But possibly. All right, here we come on another cloud bank. It looks really good. The ground looks good. It looks like ortho stuff. In fact, this is the native X-plane stuff. That's pretty damn good. All right, we're coming down nicely. We can let people smoke and talk and work their way across the cabin or whatever it is they do. Work their passenger magic. All right, so we have to hit our waypoint in 18 miles from here, 13 miles from here. So we'll bring 4 people because it seems like a good idea at the time. Alright, I will say this flight is sort of testing my my capacity for endurance. But I think I can still gut it out here. Maybe. Actually, not a bad depiction of towering clouds either. Never played a lot with this yet. Okay, the others appear the same. Except for the compass roll, the compass rose. All right, we're 27 away from the VOR, and we're 4.2 miles away from Hawks. So you can see this is the terrain we're kind of getting near. And with the Ventura stuff, they really do haze beautifully. Somebody trying to get in touch with me. Let's see. No. Boy, that looks like the Ohio River, doesn't it? All right, 1,000 away. And once we get lined up for Misma, we can activate our approach. And we're getting a little rain, and we're getting a little terrain. All right, there we go. Do a little turny turn, and we're going to let our speed bleed off as soon as we level off at 5,000, although at this point we should more likely want to be at 4,000. We've passed over the rough terrain. Going to slow us down to our first set of flap speed, which is flaps 5. And we'll just set our barometer there. I'm just popping us into IAS mode, and I'm dialing the speed back ever so slightly to about 175 so we can introduce our first notch of flaps. We'll now bring the props forward to max. Which is in and of itself a little bit tricky. Because they've got gates, but you don't quite know if you're in them. Get our localizer here in our nav2 at the moment. Get a little power in here so it'll go too slow. We say 347 for the inbound. No, 337 for the inbound. Okay, there we go. We'll get out a notch of flaps. I believe that is our localizer. It is. On our auto Corson, turn on our landing lights, and our passengers are already seated, and there's the terrain that we're dealing with here. Here comes our glide slope. We're going to now switch over to VLOC mode. There we go. There's a bit of a weather challenge coming at us. Get into approach mode. And we can turn our anti-ice off, don't need it. Glide slope is captured. Roll off the power here. Dealing with a little bit of a quartering crosswind. Nice looking clouds. And nice looking scenery. Alright. We're 11 miles out. So we can come down to 165 and bring in our next notch of flaps. And there we go. Alright, it's been a while since I've done this, boys and girls, so you'll have to bear with me. A little bit of rain, runway in sight. Get fully configured right now. Gear down, flaps down, props full. A little more juice. That wasn't very nice. Okay, we're going 110. We're coming down at about 600 feet per minute. That's just perfect. As the city of Fukuoka just twinkles like a jewel in front of us. Very nice. Alright. Just fly the airplane. Just about at the right speed. Gears down. Not going to make any drastic changes here. Looks like we got red over white. And we do have a little bit of a tailwind now, so we could circle, but you know what? Let's just play the hand we were dealt. A little bit, because that tailwind, I'm going to give us a little bit more zots here, a little bit more speed. Get us a little more nose down in aspect. There we go. Nice landmarks. Very nice. And that wind is blowing us a little bit to the left. Just correct for that right now. Giving ourselves a little speed additive to deal with the wind. So we'll be landing a little fast. Beautiful looking. This is very nice. And that wind is dying now behind us. It was 9, it's now 5. So I'm going to have to crank in a little bit of power here to stay on the glide slope. There we go. Alright, let's see if we still know how to do this. I have my doubts. Now it's 4 knots right behind us. Wow, this looks like a big Japanese city. Good scenery. Alright. We're just chugging in here. Flattening this out a little bit to help us lose a little bit of speed. The last second or two. I don't want to smack it on, but I probably will. Oh, not bad. Slide the nose wheel to the ground, 2 in reverse, and look at all those airplanes up there. Just get it out of beta there for a second. And can we take this turn off? Yeah, we'll take this turn off. And for once, I didn't stall it on the runway. Alright, let's see. Where can we go in? Up come the flaps. Go in there. Park with the big boys. Taxi light on. Landing lights off. Strobes off. This is a nice looking piece of scenery here. This is from the org. Gorgeous. Alright. Oh yeah. We're going to pull in between an A340 and a 747-400. Gotta like that. Turn off the taxi lights. Not be rude here. And I think that jetway could be just a little bit too big for us. So I think what we're going to do is do this. There we go, like so. Throw on the park and brake. Ground idle right there. Turn off the radars so we're not frying anybody's yarbles. Turn off the transponder. Strobes off. Taxi lights are off. Alright, everything else is copacetic. The seatbelt signs. We'll bring the props down and then we'll let them settle for 2 minutes. And pull them into the start position. Let them sit there. Cool their jets, as it were. And admire our handiwork. Now, before we shut the engines down, I just want to, let's replay that landing there, because that's the only reason why you guys tune in. Only reason why I tune in. Ooh, look at that. It's a nice looking arrival. Let's see where we are there. Oh yeah, look at that. That's some schmancy stuff. All right. Now, this being leading edge, you don't get the sounds, sadly. You don't get the custom sounds. You get the sounds when the thing hits the ground, because that's just an X-plane sound. But nice looking, decent looking approach. And look at the terrain we've got around us. Look at that. That's gorgeous. So we're going to have some nice flights as we go north through Japan. There is the city. And look at that. The clouds nestling in there. I'm in my happy place. Some palm trees, which are appropriate. And this is the new X-plane, probably City Autogen, so it's very nice. Let's just see what this approach looks like here. Could have used a little more of a flare. Right on the center line. Boom! Look at that. All right. That's one way to look at it. Here's another way. See what kind of tower view we can get. That's nice. That is nice. Don't worry, we'll get the Hawaii 5-0 shot too. This is a nice town. Glad I picked up this scenery. So we're compensating for the fact that our tailwind is dying and we're letting some of the speed come off that we were saving up because of it. And we get a little bit more of a sink than we need. We probably could have come in just about 2 knots faster and flared about another half a degree more. But that's hardly bad. Look at that. It's a nicely designed overpass. All right, one last time, and we're going to do the Hawaii 5-0 shot. Always got to do that. Get it right over the threshold, right about there, right on the lights. That's the Hawaii 5-0 shot at the lights. Well, I'm off center line right there to begin with, though. Look at that. All right, actually, that is the Hawaii 5-0 shot. If I can just get it tweaked there, and there, and here. Nice lighting. And in a couple weeks, they're apparently going to announce X-Plane 11, which is supposed to be the cat's pajamas here. All right, here we go. Wazoom. Nice. All right. Well, that's how I like to do it. It's not always how I get to do it, but that was a very enjoyable flight. I hope you all liked it, and I hope you didn't mind the story. Just shut down number 2 first. And number 1. And turn off our beacon. And we'll get our GPU hooked up. And get all chalked and ready to go. No, actually, it's too much stuff. Get our external power on. And tell people they can leave. And I don't know how to open the door on this thing, I gotta say. Is there a door thingy? I know there's a door command, but I don't know what it is. So here we are on the ground, all GPU'd up and all ready to go for our next leg, which is going to be, not sure where. It could be Hiroshima. Or it could be further up the coast. It could be Kansai, or we might go all the way to Tokyo. I kind of like doing the legs in this plane. Let me know what you think. I can also do it in the IXEG 737, but to my mind, it takes a little bit of the fun out of it. This is a little bit tougher to fly and a little bit more basic, but you know, maybe we'll mix it up. So you guys let me know what you want to see more of. I don't think I want to do this whole trip in a beach bonanza or something, so we'll just leave it at that. And well, the tower's on the other side of the airport, and we'll just leave you with that magnificent tableau of us sitting there between two bona fide jumbo jets. And just thank everybody for watching and being along for the ride. So I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.